Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for logging on with us for the 5th week of Financial Peace University, done through Dave Ramsey. And we say this every week. If you have not gone over to daveramsey.com, please head over there. They have a subscription model that you can basically subscribe, and they have a bunch of resources for financial peace that correlate with what we're doing. The reason why we're taking time during COVID to talk about finances, because first off, a lot of people have shaky finances right now, and so we need to learn how to manage them wisely, because as 1 Peter 4:10 says, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. And God has given us a gift of finances, and He expects us to steward it wisely. Everything we have is not ours. It's all God's, and He expects a return on it. And He says that it's actually a tool. It's not just for us to be used for ourselves, though there is a purpose for that, where we need to buy clothing and food for our families and ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but understand that as a tool for evangelism. Finances can be used to advance the kingdom of God around the world, and that's why we're very focused on missions giving here. And so last week what we talked about debt, and we had a really great time with that, and I hope that you guys did your homework of, look around, see all your debt, and then start paying off a debt snowball, where you start with your lowest debt, and then you work with to your highest debt. And a lot of people have asked, why don't you focus on your highest debt? And understand this, it's all about momentum. When we pay off that first debt, it gives us motivation to pay off the next debt and the next debt and the next debt. And so it's a very mental-based thing, and that's the reason why we encourage that way rather than focus on the highest interest debt. And so hopefully you have committed to doing that, maybe even cut up a few cards, started using the envelope system. All those are really good things, but this week what we're going to be talking about is the second part of that almost. The first week was the debt, the what it is. This week is the how do we get in debt. And I say this every week, but this is building blocks, this series. And so make sure that you actually watch the previous series. If you're watching this live with us right now, you can always hit pause. We'll be here when you return. Just make sure to go watch those so that you can build up upon it. And so this week what we're going to be looking at is buyer beware, basically talking about marketing techniques and how marketers get us to buy their products and put ourselves into debt, and how we can use certain techniques to avoid that. And so here is week 5, Buyer Beware, featuring Dave Ramsey.
Welcome, Dave Ramsey.
Woo! Yeah! Yeah! All right! Yes! Thank you. Buyer beware is our lesson this evening. Make sure you find that in your workbooks. Buyer beware. In Latin, the term is caveat emptor. You now know all the Latin I know. I learned that in the real estate business. Back in the old days, in the real estate business, we didn't have buyer's agents. The listing agent and the selling agent both got paid by the seller, and so the buyer technically had no representation. And so the saying in the real estate business that we were taught back in 1978 when I took my real estate test, the very first one I took, was let the buyer beware. And I thought of that when I thought of this whole subject matter for you. You, the buyer, need to beware. See, up to now, what we've been doing is teaching you about saving and relationships and money and getting out of debt and having a plan. And now what I want to explain to you is there's a massive group of people out there trying to sell you stuff. They want to interrupt your plan. Shields up, baby, because they're coming for your deal. They are messing with you. They're wanting to get their fingers, their claws, their wedges into your life and sell you stuff and interrupt your plan. And so I need to teach for a few minutes, and let's talk about how that works in our spirits, how this stuff has effect on us, so that once we have that knowledge, that gives us the shields to make wise buying decisions. Companies use every angle to aggressively compete for your money. Companies that don't do a good job of marketing and don't get your money go out of business. They are for profit. They're not evil. Their job is to sell you their stuff, their goods or services. To the extent they don't do that, they leave. So it's pretty desperate out there in the marketplace. They're fighting and scratching and clawing to get your business, to market to you, to convince you that what they have is not a need, it's not a want, it's a necessity. You have to have it. And they got to drill that down into your psyche. They work really hard to cause that to happen. We live in the most marketed to culture in the history of the world. At this moment in time, we have more advertising impressions and marketing processes driven at us than at any time in the history of the human race. That's a pretty wild thought. And in North America, we are the king of marketing. We're the king of it. And so those of us that call ourselves citizens of the United States of America, we get impacted harder than any human beings in the history of the world by this marketing. That's a pretty big statement if you think about it. But that's not over-dramatized. That is really the way things are. So we have to become wise consumers. We have to get control of this spending so it doesn't take over our lives and these things don't enter into our lives. Now, they go after our money in several major ways. Major ways companies market to us. The first one is personal selling. Many of us, me included, have been trained in the art of selling one-on-one, of helping someone realize the benefits of our product, our good, or our service. And they see the benefits of that, and they will exchange their hard-earned money for that. A salesman who does not learn that art form does not understand the interpersonal skill of making a persuasive argument, goes broke. Zig Ziglar's brother years ago, a guy named Judge Ziglar, wrote a book that's called Timid Salesmen Have Skinny Kids. And if you don't learn how to sell in the sales situation, you have to go do something else. The classic salesperson, of course, is on the car lot. And the basic close. First thing we're ever taught in sales is never answer a question except with another question. And so someone comes up and they see a Ford Taurus sitting there and they see a green one and they say, "Do you have this in blue?" The salesman or sales lady that says yes is pretty quickly out of business. Or no. You never just answer the question. You say, I'll be happy to check on that, but now were you looking for a 2-door or a 4-door? I think a 4-door. Were you looking for the sport version or the luxury package? Oh, I'm thinking luxury. Do you think the sunroof would be in order, or are you thinking maybe you want to save those dollars? Oh, no, we don't want the sunroof. Did you want the one with all 4 wheels? And as I'm asking all of these questions, I'm basically filling out the order. The National Auto Dealers Association, that has studied sales in that setting on the car lot, knows that 88% of the time that someone is on a new car lot and does a test drive, if they leave the lot, 88% of the time they will never be back. And you promise them you're coming back. You really mean to come back. But by the time you take a test drive, you have car fever. And it causes you to lie. You didn't mean to lie, but it causes you to lie. Oh, because he's such a nice guy. We're just going to look around and then we'll be back. In 72 hours, you'll buy a car. And 88% of the time, you won't be back. In the car business, they call them be-backs. So when they start that I'll be back thing, you get ready to leave. You say, "Oh, I'm coming back, I promise." You look down, there'll be something around your ankle, and it's the salesman. Don't leave, right? Because they know if you get off the lot, 9 out of 10 times they've lost you. You're gone. It's the basics of selling. And so you need to understand that there are people that study this art form. They spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of man hours learning how to do alternative closes, learning how to walk you through a benefits presentation. The art of persuasion is alive and well, and it causes us, you and I, to buy things. It really, really does. Another way they get at us is financing and convenient payment methods. Now, one of the things I've talked to you a lot through this whole course, and I'm going to keep talking to you about it, is I want you to be able to feel money. When you finance something, you don't feel it. You don't feel the weight of it. For instance, if you get ready to buy a living room suit and it's $4,000 for all the pieces, if you have to pay $4,000 for it, you went, "Wow, that's heavy. I just bought something." But if they can get you to finance it, you don't think about it. All you're asking is how much down, how much a month. That's what poor people ask. How much down, how much a month. Rich people ask, how much? They feel the weight of the decision. Financing the decision takes the weight of it off. It's a method of marketing. And so we have stuff out there like 90 days, same as cash. Well, that doesn't really work out that way, because 88% of the 90 days, same as cash contracts, convert to payments that are usually around 24% interest, APR, with the rule of 78's prepayment penalty. Now, rule of 78's we're not going to go into, but basically that means they're going to kick you in the teeth if you try to pay it off early, and they're going to get a whole bunch of the interest that they didn't even earn. So it's the worst of the worst. Most people don't pay it off in 90 days, and it converts to payments, and they back charge you through the whole 90 days. And because you didn't feel the weight of the purchase when you bought it, you just said, press hard, there's 3 copies as you're signing. You've got to place that signature there. That's the whole thing. And 89% of new car purchases are financed according to cars.com. So that's 9 out of 10 people that buy a new car somehow don't pay for it. They pay for it in the form of financing. And so they never think about whether that car is $23,000 or $18,000. All they think about is how much a month and how much down. And that takes the pressure off of the purchase, and so financing becomes a method of marketing. Also, anything they can do to make it just convenient and easy for you to buy and not even think about it and not see and touch real money causes you to buy. Store loyalty cards. Store reward cards, store credit cards. We'll give you 10% off if you sign up for our credit card as you're buying this. And you promise that you're going to go home and cut it up as soon as it comes in the mailbox, but then there's another sale. They know this. They know exactly what their conversion rate is. Every time they know that someone signs up, they know how many are going to cut it up. They know how many are going to close. And believe me, they wouldn't be giving that discount unless they made money on average across our stupid decisions. This is not a game for them. It's a mathematical science. They're studying our behavior. We're like a bunch of lab rats, and they're watching what we are doing. Mobile payment options, paying for things on your mobile phone. Now, here's a real good idea. Be in traffic and make a decision to buy something. You are not registering emotionally the purchase, are you? You're not catching the purchase. So anything they can do to make it convenient. In the phones now are the NFC chips, and we're starting to see already that you can just walk in with your phone and buy something. You put your numbers on there. You can hit PayPal. You just walk in there and buy something. You put your numbers on there, your debit card. You just walk in there and buy something. And see, you don't register holding a cell phone versus holding real money. You don't realize you're actually buying things. Apple, man, they're just geniuses. They are excellent, excellent marketers. And they've got the new iPhone Apple app. You can put it on your iPhone, and what you can do is walk into the Apple store with your iPhone, take an item, maybe some nice headphones off the shelf, scan it yourself. It's already charged to your account, and you walk out. There's no checkout line. There's no interaction with any of their staff. It's instantaneous, low impact, very convenient. And you don't even realize you just bought something with Apple's incredible margins. They have incredible margins. That's how they pay for all that marketing. And they are excellent. They're a great company. I'm not mad at them. I just want you to understand how good they are. And when interviewed, people ask immediately, well, aren't you worried about theft? Aren't you worried about shrinkage? And the Apple comment was just fabulous. I love it. It says, the risk of shrinkage is not worth losing the convenience. Translation, we're going to sell so much stuff, if something gets stolen, it'll be okay. That's really what they're saying. And that's really what's going on. Now, obviously, they've got theft protection things in there. They're not crazy. But the point is, make it easy for the customer to buy, and the customer buys more. And you're the customer. So you have to have your shields up. TV, radio, magazines, internet, the impact of all of these things with media where they just pound their message at us. Just boom, boom, boom. It's a steady beat of these drums. TV ads are fabulous. They are works of art. A typical 30-second national TV commercial costs nearly $300,000 to produce. That's $10,000 a second. They spend $10,000 a second to produce a 30-second ad. That's the average. Meanwhile, that ad is running in the middle of a television program that costs somewhere around $300,000 to produce, which is around $83 a second. So the stupid television program we're watching, they paid $83 a second to produce so they can sell us stuff that they spend $10,000 a second to produce. Are you getting the picture? Are you learning what business they're in? They're in the business of selling us stuff. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory, and I'm not paranoid or anything like that. These guys are just great marketers. And you can't wander along with your brain half plugged in, because you're going to come home and there's going to be a garage full of stuff and you have no idea who bought it, and then it'll suddenly occur to you it was you. Because they have a plan to get your money. And you have to have a plan to not let them interrupt your plan. And repetition is powerful. It drills it into our spirit. Let me show you the power of repetition on a couple of things. How many of you were born since 1971? You were born since 1971. Looks like about half the room. Well, an interesting thing happened in 1962. On Wednesday night, a new television program came on in 1962. It was called the Beverly Hillbillies. Beverly Hillbillies is a phenomenon. It's actually a marketing phenomenon. It's very, very interesting because the thing ran from 1962 to 1971. And it was always on Wednesday night except one year when they moved it to Thursday. Ratings went down, they moved it right back to Wednesday. They stayed right in the same place, drilling into the American psyche. 274 episodes. They did 106 in black and white, and they did 168 in color. There has not been a new Beverly Hillbillies episode other than the movies filmed since 1971. It, of course, went into reruns, and many of you watched it in reruns. But it's interesting to me how many of you can help me with this. You remember how the show began? Help me with this. Come listen to a story about a man. We could keep going. Well, first thing you know, we won't, okay? Right? Half the room wasn't born yet, and everybody in here can sing it. Repetition is powerful when drilled consistently at you in exactly the same way over and over and over again. Think about this. Finish this one for me. Things go better with Coke. 1968 is when that slogan came out. You deserve a McDonald's. 1971. This is how powerful this is. Think about it. Where's the 1985, and it was such a popular advertisement, and we worship marketing so much in this country, they brought it back as a retro ad, didn't they? And of course, Clara Peller died in 1987. Here's the oldest one, and everyone can do it. They're still using it. Melts in your mouth. M&M's, 1954. And you tell me marketing doesn't work? And we're singing all this stuff like it's an old hymn in here right now. This stuff works. It has power. It has integrated itself into our lives to the point that we'll buy an old Coca-Cola antique sign to put up in our den. People will buy T-shirts for the opportunity to wear these brands and be walking billboards for other companies and pay for the right to do that. How interesting a culture we now live in. This is fabulous, but you, in order to have financial peace, have to get your shields up. Now, you can enjoy the process of buying things, but you now need to be an adult and not just be led to the slaughter like a bunch of sheep anymore. That's what we're laying in place here. And, of course, the one I love is Amazon's One Click. Oh, I love Amazon One Click. That's where you set up an account with them, and anytime you see something, you just click on it, and you just click on it, and click on it, and my whole basement was full of books. because I'm a book junkie. Make it easy for the customer to buy, and they will buy more, whether it's convenience or whether it's financing. Then there's product positioning. Now, product positioning takes on a couple of different forms. Form one it takes on is it takes on the form of how they position themselves in our minds. For instance, Mercedes has done a great job marketing their product. Mercedes is a great car. I love them. They're awesome. And they position themselves in our mind as the car that holds its value. Mercedes don't go down like others. Yes, they do. It's a myth. Cadillac actually spent $100 million on an advertising campaign back in the 90s. Full-page ads everywhere showing the statistical evidence, the real numbers that Cadillacs percentage-wise held their value better than Mercedes. But Mercedes had done such a good job sticking that in the American public's mind that no one believed the ads, and the ad campaign was a flop. And it was based on facts. But they positioned their product in our minds in a certain way where we believe it. And of course, anything that Apple produces is really cool. I mean, I got Apple stuff just hoping I'd get some spike hair. There was almost one, and then it went away. I mean, I didn't want to be a PC, even though I'm an old bald guy. What great marketing. What a great job they've done. They are the cool of computers. They're the cool of electronics. They're the cutting edge. And they position themselves marketing. Now, they may or may not have a better operating system. They may or may not have a better handheld device. Doesn't matter. They've convinced everybody that they do. That's marketing. And they put it in your mind. Bottled water, I love this one. I've got a friend who's a water snob. A water snob? He can tell the difference. No, he can't. There's no way. I was getting ready to do an event with 2020 with John Stossel, and so I thought I better read a couple of John's books before I went up there. That was before he left 2020, and so I read a couple of his books, and one of the things I found in there was very interesting. He did this full expose on the bottled water phenomenon. I mean, and so they got the expensive bottled water, and they got, the generic bottled water. Generic water. That's interesting, isn't it? What a great job they do. And then he got New York City tap water. And they put them out on a table in glasses, exactly the same temperature, exactly the same level, controlled environment, had people taste test. The most expensive water lost. New York tap water came in third. They took it to a biologist, a microbiologist. He said all the waters were almost identical except the New York tap water, which had a little more fluoride in it, was probably actually better for you. But other than that, they were identical. Guess who lost? Evian. They lost the taste test. Interesting. It's kind of interesting to me that Evian spelled backwards is naive. Color in terms of product positioning. You take like an ERA real estate sign, that ugly orange. I used to work for those guys. It gets your attention. You see it when you're driving. The color matters. It doesn't blend in with the landscape. That was a professionally done color analysis to come up with that orange. And since it worked so well, apparently the same company that comes up with ugly colors that catch your attention did Century 21. So we got yellow and orange. I feel like we're in traffic school, right? But it catches your peripheral vision as you drive by. Oh, there's a house for sale. And they're positioning themselves. They're doing everything they can to get your attention and hold your attention. Shelf position matters. The books that are in the bookstore are not at the front because they're the best books. That's because those of us that are authors have publishers that paid that bookstore for that shelf position. If you're a Nabisco and you want your Oreos in a certain place in the store, and you do want them in a certain place in the grocery store, you will pay for that shelf position. Merchandising. Grocery stores are some of the best merchandisers on the planet. They study how you work the aisles better than anybody else. They put the stuff at the right position. All the kids' stuff is down here. Of course, the impulse things, Wrigley's gum was the first to discover that right there at the register, right? And that made the Wrigley family wealthy because they had the impulse items right there at the register. This stuff is not done on accident. These people study you and I like lab rats. They are all over us. And so what happens is this. I'm out there pumping my gas. and the stupid debit card thing won't work, and it's hot. And so I'm kind of aggravated now. And I walk into the store. And as I'm walking up to pay, there's one of these. Of course, where that is sitting is scientifically placed. If it's too much in my way, it aggravates me and does damage to the brand. If it's not enough in my way, I don't even see it and walk past it. So it has to be just perfect to where I see it. And I walk up to it, now I'm aggravated and I'm hot, and I see a Mountain Dew and I pull it out. And a piece of ice runs and drops off. And as it does that, in my subconscious, I go off a tire swing into a creek. And I walk over and pay more for this than I would have paid for a case of them across the street at the grocery store. It's a different thing. Or I can go in here and I can get me some Deer Park water, right? Some of that generic water. I'm not sure we should be drinking from where a deer parked. Something to think about. They position things in such a way that we see them, touch them, feel them, see them. The colors, the shelf position, none of this is an accident. People who do these things by accident go out of business. The competition out there is too fierce. You and I have to beware. When we're facing significant purchases, we need to be really, really careful. A significant purchase is anything around $300 or more. Some of you that are very wealthy, it may be a little bit more. Some of you that are very broke, it may be a little less. A significant purchase will cause changes in you physically when you make it. You'll get a little sweat in your palm, a little sweat on your upper lip. Your eyes will dilate a little bit. Your heart rate will increase a little bit. In general, you're going to have a physiological reaction called excitement. Because you're getting pumped. I'm getting to buy that thing. And if you have that reaction, there's a chance that the next day, those physiological changes in your body have worn off, and you will have what's known as buyer's remorse. Have you ever bought something and woke up the next morning and go, oh, Lord, forgive me, what did I do? We've all done that. I used to sell high-end houses, expensive homes, and we had a tremendous buyer's remorse the next morning. People would come in and want to get back out of the deal. And so we had a company come in and teach us how to sell against that. And so what we would do is sit down and go, here's what's going to happen. You're all excited. This is a great thing. We're getting this contract all signed up. We're going to build this beautiful home for you. But what normally happens is you've had these physiological changes and you've perspired all these things. And you're going to wake up in the morning. Normal people wake up the next day and kind of have this feeling of, oh, what have I done? And if you have that feeling, you're just normal. Roll over and go back to sleep. Just doing that little speech cut our fallout in half. Because we normalized buyer's remorse as a part of the sales process. And that's not manipulative, or is it? Bottom line is that it's a part of the marketing process, and you need to be aware of it. And I don't know about you, but I have been in a grocery store a time or two and seen a kid in the grocery store having one of those Phase 7 grocery store fits. Have you ever seen one of those? I was in there the other day and I saw one, and this kid is screaming at the top of his lungs. And his mother's got that vein on her head doing this, you know. She's getting ready to take him outside. It's not going to be good, you know. She's holding him up a little too high, carrying him out there like this, right? And she's yelling at him, it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget. I was scared to death she was going to say, Dave Ramsey says we can't buy it. I have found out that each one of us have that grocery store kid inside of us. That kid, that little red-faced grocery store kid is living inside of us. His name is immaturity. His name is immaturity. And I know this because I went down to the furniture store and I saw this lady dressed real nice, about 40 years old, standing beside a leather couch going, I want one, and you're going to buy it. And I went to the boat show and I saw this guy in camo. And he's standing beside a bass boat going, I need a bigger engine. Those bass are outrunning me. And I went to the golf store. And I saw a guy in there going, I need a big Bertha. I can hit the ball like Tiger with the big Bertha. And I went back to the furniture store, and there was another lady in there beside a china cabinet going, we need a china cabinet. I know we don't use the china, but I want a cabinet to put it in. And everywhere I go, including me when I go to the electronics store, Oh, Dave. Big screen fit, aisle 3. Yeah. We all have that little kid inside of us. He's inside of us and he throws a fit. If we don't make that little kid behave, in other words, if you and I don't grow up and make our decisions based on the money that we really have, not on our little desires. And I work so hard, I deserve it. Oh, shut up. Seriously, whine. Call the wambulance. Really. You deserve it when you've saved up the money and can pay for it. Until then, you don't deserve it. Shocking. He said no. No is a great word. It'll set you free. No doubt about it. So, how do we gain power over our purchases? Well, we have to lay out some basic things that we say, these are the rules when we're doing a significant purchase. When there's over $300 involved, these are the rules. Rule number 1 is we wait overnight. When we walk in to see something, we analyze the situation unless we've already gathered all of our facts and have done shopping up to that point. Now, in that case, you've waited overnight because you've worked up to the process. But if you walk in and you see something and you're getting ready to impulse on an item over $300, no. Sharon and I, our rule is we wait. We step back and we wait overnight. It might be gone. There's only one. What is it, a Picasso? They're shrink wrapped on a pallet in the back. Please. There is more than one. And if you get back tomorrow and there's none left at all and you missed out, maybe God is saying you weren't supposed to have it. You mean God says no? Uh-huh. He says no all the time. Chuck Swindoll says he says yes, no, or grow. These are the 3 answers to prayers. Yes, no, and grow. So what we're saying is he who is impulsive exalts folly. That's what the proverb says. He who is impulsive exalts folly. Folly is the verb of a fool in action. So when you're impulsive and when I'm impulsive, especially on purchases, that's a fool in action. The second thing we want to look at is we want to consider our motives, because no amount of stuff equals contentment or fulfillment. Is this a need or is this a want? I'll help you with that. It's a want. Your needs are met. You have food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and utilities. Your needs are met. To buy a better one is not a need. I needed another house. No, you wanted another house. I need a better car. You don't need a better car. You want a better car. Basic transportation is there. You're just whining about what it is. There's nothing wrong with getting a better car, but quit telling everybody it's a need. You're being a child. It's a want. There's nothing wrong with buying wants. I want you to live like no one else so that later you can live and give like no one else. It's okay, but just be an adult and say, I saved up the money, I worked hard, it fits in our overall plan, we've made a mature decision, I want it. That's okay. You're not a bad Christian because you wanted something. There's nothing wrong with you having some nice things. But let's just call it what it is. And quit chasing happiness with stuff. I'll be happy if I just got that. I'll be happy if we could live over there. I'll be happy if I had a car like that. I'll be happy if I had those shoes. I'll be happy if I had that purse. I'll be happy. No, you won't. Happiness is the bully in the schoolyard. He draws a line, and as soon as you step across the line, he backs up and draws another line. He keeps moving the line. You will never catch Mr. Happiness. And money cannot buy happiness. Money can buy fun. And it's okay for money to buy some fun. You can have some fun. You can get you a nice boat and go play on the water. You can go to Disney World or you can go on a cruise. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fun. And you should do those things, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. If you save up and pay for it and you're doing the other things we talk about. But the trick is, don't do that because my whole life I've wanted to go to Hawaii. When I get to go to Hawaii, I'll be happy then. You're going to be let down. It's pretty, but it's not heaven. It's not. And you're not going to feel that way when you get there. Quit looking for happiness in the wrong place. It's not there. Buy some fun, but you can't buy happiness. I'll tell you this, it doesn't matter how much money you get. If you eat enough lobster, eventually it tastes like soap. None of this stuff is going to make you happy. And Jesus said this real clearly. He said, don't build bigger barns and try to get your security and your happiness out of your stuff. There's nothing wrong with saving money and having a barn full of grain. But the problem with that guy, that particular guy, was he was looking for his eternal security and his security and everything else out of what was in the barn. He wanted happiness from stuff. and you're not going to get that. It won't work for you. Never buy anything you don't understand. Now, we're going to cover stuff like investments, and we're going to cover stuff like insurance in this course. So you don't put money in those things unless you understand them. But other things apply too. Quit buying anything you don't understand. You rush into something, and then you find out later you've gotten a mortgage that's gotten you all twisted up, and you didn't know the terms on the thing. You rush into something, and you don't even know how to operate the thing you bought. Some people have a whole bowl of remotes in their house and can't work half the stuff on their TV. Don't buy things you don't understand. Consider the opportunity cost on your money. Now, opportunity cost is a financial term. If I take $5,000 and I go on a cruise with it, there's nothing wrong with that. But I lost the opportunity to fund a Roth IRA. If I take $5,000 and I fund a Roth IRA, there is nothing wrong with that. But I lost the opportunity to go on a cruise with that $5,000. So when you take a block of money and you spend it, or you give it, or you invest it, think about what opportunities you missed by doing that. So when you have a decision before you of substance, of size, you say to yourself, is there anything else with this block of money right now that we should be doing, or that we later will wish we had done instead? That's the missed opportunity thing. A guy that I know in the investment business, when he was in his 20s, he was very successful selling investments. And he set a goal. When I make $100,000 a year, I'm going to take $40,000 out of my mutual fund and buy myself a brand new Mercedes. The year was 1986, many, many years ago. Well, sure enough, he hit his $100,000 mark, and he went down to get the new Mercedes. He was a young pup in his 20s. The Mercedes guy's like, how are you going to pay for this? And he said, well, I just took the cash out of my mutual fund. I'm going to write a check. And the guy's like, okay, let's look, right? And so he says, I get that Mercedes, and he said, I just want to test drive it. And the guy said, that's fine. Why don't you just take it home? And you can come back tomorrow, and if you want to buy it, we'll do the paperwork then. Because once you take it home, you know you can't bring it back, right? That's a sales technique. And he said, I drove that thing, and out there on the emblem was that Mercedes right there on the hood sticking up out there. And he said, man, that was just saying to me, you are a success. And he said, in case I didn't look there, I could look right there on the steering wheel. There was another one saying, you are a success. He said it was everything. It smelled rich. It was rich. It was fun to drive. I pulled up in the driveway. My wife came running out squealing, and she's like, you did it. You did it. You finally hit your goals. I'm so proud of you. Your success. The neighbors came over. They rubbed on the car, the whole thing. He said, I made a mistake. I took out my financial calculator, and I looked at what my $40,000 for this Mercedes might be worth in a few years, and I couldn't do it. I took the car back. I bought a $6,000 car. I put that $40,000 in a mutual fund. He said, I never added to it. Now, many years later, he was very, very wealthy, as you might imagine. And 12 years later, he was driving a very, very nice vehicle, and he pulled up at a stoplight, and he noticed a 1986 Mercedes, just like he had always wanted, next to him. And he rolled down his window in his really nice car and said, sir, I don't want to be a snob or be rude, but I'm curious, do you have any idea what that car's worth? And the guy says, yes, I just bought it, and the book value on it, I just got it at book. I'm really proud of it. It's an awesome car. I paid $4,000 for it. The $40,000 turned into $4,000 in 12 years. He said, what was interesting was I went home and I opened my mutual fund statement. I've never added anything to that mutual fund except that original $40,000, and 12 years later, it was $300,000. He said, so I could have had a $4,000 car or a $300,000 mutual fund. I think I made a good choice. That's the opportunity cost on your money. The last thing you want to do when you're putting up a barrier between you and purchases is always seek the counsel of your spouse. Always talk it through with your spouse. The Bible is real clear on this. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, and he will have no lack of gain. Gentlemen, listen to me carefully. If you are married to a virtuous wife, lady, that means you are not a barking chihuahua. And God did not give you permission to become the Holy Spirit here. But if you are married to a virtuous wife, like I am, and you will listen to her counsel on these major decisions, look at that very carefully. You will have no lack of gain. And by the way, I think God wouldn't be mad at us for taking a little bit of liberty for that and switching it around a little bit. Who can find a virtuous husband? For his worth is far above rubies. The heart of his wife safely trusts him, and she will have no lack of gain. Learn to work together when you're married and seek the counsel of your spouse. You will make much better decisions. Sharon and I do no giving, and we do no major purchases. We do almost no minor purchases unless we are in unity on the decision. We have to be unified on the decision. If we're getting ready to give to something, to some ministry, and Sharon has a bad feeling about it, if she has a feeling, that's known as the Holy Spirit. We listen to that. She's from the South, and one of those feelings, every time financially I go against one of those feelings, costs me $10,000. I quit going against those feelings a long time ago. And you know what? Sometimes she's looking at something and I have a sense about it. I get a check in my spirit. And we have learned to work together. It is one of the most valuable decision-making tools you can have, is to respect each other's opinion, be respectful of each other's opinion, and use that as a decision-making tool. Now, I want to bring Mr. John Acuff out here to teach you guys for a few minutes. He is an awesome, awesome, world-class speaker. Please welcome to the stage, John Acuff.
It is an honor to be here with you tonight. And I want to start our conversation off with a story about my family at the free zoo. I don't know if you've ever been to the free zoo. That's what we call the pet store. And it is a delightful experience because you get to play with the animals and actually hang out with them, and then you go home and it costs $0. We call the lobster tank at Walmart the free aquarium. Now, granted, it's a niche aquarium. There's only one animal alive. The rest are sleeping. But it'll do in a pinch. And one night we were there at the pet store, and I was trying to keep my kids' hands clean. I don't know if you ever do that as a parent. I was saying, don't touch that turtle, salmonella. Take this antibacterial foam and spray. And I was doing my best. And we got in the car, and I felt like I had won, like I had been a good parent that night until we were driving away. And I looked up in the rearview mirror, and McCrae, my 1-year-old daughter at the time, had taken off her shoe, her little yellow croc, and was licking the bottom. Just enjoying some of that pet store mesquite. Taste the rainbow. And I realized, okay, I didn't win in that situation. I didn't come out on top in that. And I was never a germ guy before I had kids, but kids change things, don't they? They're like these cute little adorable grenades in your life. They change everything. And when we had kids, we realized we need to change cars. We had a 2-door Camry. It had 180,000 miles on it. And I don't know if you ever tried to put a child seat in the back of a 2-door Camry. You need like Cirque du Soleil body contortion to get that in there. And so we said, okay, we're getting rid of this Camry. We're going to sell it. And so one day, 4 of us stood in the driveway in Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived at the time. And I was there. My wife was there. There was a father and a son who had come to look at the car. And my wife said, I think the car's worth $2,100. I feel like $2,100 is a fair price. And then I said, I think $2,000 is fair. And then it got kind of quiet, like the air got sucked out of the moment. And my wife said, can you hold on just 1 second? I'm just going to talk for a second. Did you just talk us down? Like, we're on the same team in this. Did you just reduce the price? You're a horrible negotiator. Can you go inside while I finish this? That wasn't emasculating at all. Not at all. But she was right. I was a horrible negotiator. I was horrible with money in general. I was one of those guys that would buy things and call them emergencies. And I hate to admit this, but guys, buying a bigger television before the Super Bowl, really not an emergency. But ladies, here's what we're afraid of. Let me tell you what we guys are afraid of. We're afraid there's going to be a touchdown that happens outside of our television. Right? Like, we're afraid the announcer's going to go, amazing catch, one-handed touchdown, happened just outside of 32 inches. You folks that own a 47-inch TV got served a treat. That's what we're afraid of, and that's how I thought about money and debt and negotiating. I was a mess. So what happened? What changed? How did I get up here? Well, I started to learn the principles Dave teaches in Financial Peace University. And it changed my life. It changed the way I looked at money, and it even changed the way I looked at negotiating. Because I used to feel like negotiating was really complex and complicated, but it's actually not. It's really pretty simple. In fact, there are 7 simple rules for successful negotiating, and that's what I want to tell you about tonight. Rule number 1, always tell the absolute truth. You should write "don't lie" in your workbook, because that's just a good rule for life. And it's a simple one, but you'd be surprised how tempting it is when you're in the middle of a negotiation to fib the details a little, to save a little more money. But let me tell you, your character is worth more than $50. It's worth more than an extra 10%. And in fact, Tom Stanley wrote a book called The Millionaire Mind, where he studied decamillionaires, people worth $10 million or more. And the greatest characteristic he found in all of those people he studied was fanatical integrity. They fought to hold on to their integrity, and you need to too in the middle of a negotiation. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, use the power of cash. And this is a fun one, because so few people use cash now that when you pull it out, it's like a zebra's entered the room. And people, whoa, it's all green? What is that? And I like to pull it out and do what I call the Benjamin Franklin peacock tail, where I kind of fan it, and I let the air conditioning in the store wave it seductively during the conversation. And then if things aren't going well, I start to put it up. Like, okay, once I fold it, once it goes in that pocket, there's no encore song. I mean, it's not coming back out for another number. Use cash, it's powerful. Rule number 3, use the walkaway power. Now, this one's kind of complicated. It's gonna be fast. I've asked the cameramen to slow down the HD film because I want them to be able to capture it. So just pay attention, focus on my shirt. It's very bright and on fire. Okay, here it goes, walkaway power. Did you see it? Did you catch it? It starts with what I call the shoulder turn of doubt. Like, I doubt you're giving me a good price. And now I'm turning, and now I'm in motion. That's how you do it. And you'd be surprised how many conversations will happen by the door of the store, and how often somebody will negotiate in a parking lot. It's different. That's rule number 3. Rule number 4, learn to shut up. Do you think I could have used that one in the driveway that day? If my wife were here, she'd say, yes, he could have. This one's simple. Even a fish won't be caught if he keeps its mouth shut. And this isn't a new idea. This is biblical. I mean, let's look at Proverbs 17:28. Let's look at what that says. Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue. And I'm going to show you how powerful silence is. Ready? Here's a quick demonstration. Woo! Wasn't that tense? Didn't you want me to talk? Oh, it was awkward. Imagine a 10-second pause. Imagine a 20-second pause. If you're quiet in a negotiation, prices go down. Rule number 5, learn these 4 words. That's not good enough. Say, that's not good enough. That first price, that's not good enough. You combine that with the silent treatment, that's a powerful tag team. Those 2 are brothers. That's an easy one to do. That's not good enough. And then you sit there. Number 6, learn to identify the good guy, bad guy technique. And you see this sometimes at auto dealerships, and we're not saying use this. We're saying know when it's being used against you. You see this when you go to buy a car. You go in, and the guy on the sales floor goes, I love this car. I want to put you in this car at this price. I want to give you free stuff like undercoating. It's not real, but I'll throw it in there. You go, this guy's for me. He's on my side. He goes, let me just check in the back room with my manager. And then he walks back here to a break room, has a coffee, maybe a cinnamon dolce latte, checks his watch, comes back out and goes, oh, that guy, I want to give you this price. I'm on your side. We're BFF. He won't do it. Urgh. He's really mean. He has one of those mean goatees, like the pointy kind. I'm so mad. If you see that starting to happen, you're getting played. Be careful. And the last rule, number 7, is learn to master the if I take away technique. If I take away. In any given sale or negotiation, there's multiple things on the table. Let's look at TVs as an example, because I referenced that earlier. If you go to buy a new TV right now, they'll say, hey, we've got this surge protector and some extra cable and some 3D glasses. And if you know you don't need those other things, you can say, all right, if I take away the 3D glasses, what's the new price on the TV? If I take away the surge protector, what's the new price on the TV? And you'll be able to change the price. And those are the 7 simple rules. But if you really want to be a master negotiator, if you want to get great at it, there's 2 things you can do. 1, go to the online resources and watch the free lesson. Dave does an entire free lesson about the ins and outs of negotiating. And the second thing you can do is keep listening to the guy who taught me everything I know about negotiating, the guy I get to bring back up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Ramsey.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep these people from interrupting our plan. Our plan is to live like no one else so later we can live and give like no one else. We're going to decide when to make the purchases. We're going to have power over purchase. We're going to do those things every single time. We're going to use those negotiating techniques that John talked about every single time, and we're going to do the steps I talked about every single time when you're doing a major, significant purchase. Now, what is your 1-minute takeaway? Write it at the bottom.
Hopefully you guys like that week. It's a little bit different than finances because it's not really a lot of homework on our behalf, but it says in Proverbs 13:11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. And we can actually reverse that verse to make it say this, wealth spent hastily will dwindle. We can say that. We can say that, when we spend our money on random things all over the place, it might be $1 here, $2 there. Well, over time, that really, really adds up. And then he says, whoever gathers little by little, whoever spends little by little will lose it. And so we need to make sure that, we're not just going out and buying a bunch of random things. It actually says this, in Proverbs 21:5, that the plans of the diligence surely lead to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. The Bible right there is saying, man, we need to make a plan to avoid spending our money everywhere. It's not wrong to go out and treat yourself to a latte. It's not wrong to go to Wawa one night and possibly pick up dinner. Those things are okay, but understanding that you need to have a plan so you're not doing it more than you realize, because if we were to be completely honest with each other, and I know I'm speaking for myself, that the times when I haven't budgeted my money out were the times where I suddenly don't know where my money went. It just went everywhere. And that's the amazing thing. If you have a $5 bill in your pocket, it'll be gone before you know it, and you won't even have any remembrance of where it went. Because money that is left unaccounted for or basically not set in a direction for budgeting will always end up being spent. And so this week we talked about impulse buying. We talked about marketing and how they try to get you to do that impulse buys. And everything in stores has been done with the very specific purpose of getting you to purchase things. Many clothing stores, they often have those little racks at the front, or grocery stores, they have the candy right there in the aisles. Just pick up a candy. It's only 99 cents. Yes, it's only 99 cents, but then you add that up over time and how much money you're spending on that little piece of candy. That's ruining our diets anyways. And so marketers know what they're doing. And one of the best things that they have done is to make us think that we are smarter than them. There's many times where I watch a commercial for Coca-Cola and I'm like, who would actually want Coca-Cola after you see someone drinking it? That just doesn't appeal to me. But yet the next time I'm at the store, I'm like, yo, I really want a soda. It's actually funny. It works. They play the long game, so we have to play the long game too. And that's one of the reasons why I love one piece of advice that Dave Ramsey gave during this thing. Patience. When we want to buy something, we need to develop patience in order to buy it. We need to make sure that we wait overnight at least if we're going to make a big purchase. And if we still want it as much the next day, then what we have to do is check with our budget. Patience is key. There was one time Katie and I, we waited 3 weeks to go buy a trash can just because we were being patient to make sure we got the best deal. We were able to do research and see which one. We didn't just go and immediately dive into it. As dumb as that might sound, a trash can, how important is that? But we have instilled this in every single part of our financial budgeting plan. Patience. Patience and wisdom in determining what do we need, what do we not need, and what do we buy, and when do we buy it. Remember, a plan is extremely important. Just like Proverbs says, the plan of the diligence leads to abundance. Man, marketing is trying to get us to just hastily make decisions. But understanding that we need to take a step back, just like Dave Ramsey said, take a step back, wait a night. Do I still want it? And so this week we do have a little bit of homework, but it's really easy. What we need to do is define what is a major purchase for you and your family. What is a major purchase? Is it $300, $200? For some of us, it's going to be $20. For some of us, it's 50 cents. What is a major purchase? And the reason why we need to figure out what a major purchase is because that will help us to determine on what things do we need to wait overnight to buy. Once we figure out what a major purchase is, then we can go forth and try to fit it into our budget. And like I said, every single week we need to be looking at our zero-based budgets and figuring out where we are in the plan. Are we sticking to the plan? Does something need to be adjusted to the plan? Make sure that we are constantly keeping that in front of us. Hang it up on your fridge. Make a copy so you don't lose it. But make sure you're constantly looking at your zero-based budget. And the last thing is this: do a marketing assessment. What a marketing assessment is basically we look around our house and we pay attention to the kind of things that we usually buy. And then what we do is we figure out what things bring us joy, what things do we need, what things do we not need. And then look at the things that we don't need, but we keep on buying, and we're like, why do I buy them? And so take a moment, go through your house and see what kind of marketing works on me. And what we need to do in order to figure that out is to humble ourselves. There's many times where I like to think I'm smarter than the people marketing. But in reality, there's many times where they know what they're doing. It's a billion-dollar industry. I need to humble myself and see where are my weak spots, where are my chinks in the armor. And then once I'm there, then I can deal with it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to close up tonight. And thank you so much for logging on with us and taking a real look at your finances. But we're going to close with a prayer. Father God, I thank you for everyone that's logged on. And I thank you for everyone that's taking the time to become a wise steward of their finances. And I pray, Lord, that you can help them. Lead them, guide them, and help them in discovering what marketing techniques are being used on them. And I pray, Lord, that you can actually help them to defeat those. I pray you give us patience when it comes to buying things, where we don't try to meet the immediate need, but we meet the long-term need. It's not wrong to spend money on ourselves, Lord. You gave it to us for a purpose. But I pray, God, that you may help us to be wise in every decision we make. We love you, we praise you. In your name we pray. Amen. God bless everyone. Have a great night, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you this Sunday.